No one was supposed to leave him there. The road that cut through the savannah was little more than a scar in the dust, used mostly by supply trucks and the occasional patrol. It wasn't a place for stops, not for rest, and certainly not for goodbyes. Yet that morning a vehicle slowed, pulled to the side, and turned off its engine as if the land itself had asked for silence. The old man sat in the passenger seat, hands folded in his lap, eyes fixed on the horizon. The heat pressed against the windows, thick and unmoving. His breathing was shallow, uneven, the kind that comes after too many long days and not enough strength left to pretend otherwise. He had stopped asking questions an hour earlier. His daughter stepped out first. She moved quickly, avoiding his eyes, circling the back of the car as if motion could replace courage. She opened the trunk, pulled out a small bag, and placed it on the ground near the road. Inside were a bottle of water, a thin blanket, a few personal items hastily chosen. Not enough. Never enough. "Stay here," she said, her voice tight. "Someone will come." The old man nodded. He always nodded now. Not because he understood, but because nodding required less effort than arguing, less effort than hope. He watched as she closed the trunk, wiped her hands on her jeans, and stood still for a moment longer than necessary. The savannah stretched endlessly around them. Tall grass rippled under the sun. Insects buzzed in lazy patterns. Somewhere far off a bird cried out and then fell silent. His daughter got back into the car. She hesitated with her hand on the door handle. For a brief second, it looked like she might say something else, something honest. But the moment passed. She closed the door, started the engine, and pulled back onto the road without looking back. Dust swallowed the car almost immediately. The old man was alone. At first he didn't move. He remained seated on the low rock beside the road, the bag at his feet, his body conserving what little energy it had left. Minutes passed, then more. The sun climbed higher, burning away the thin layer of morning coolness. His mouth grew dry. He reached for the bottle and took a small sip, careful not to waste it. The silence felt heavy. This wasn't the silence of peace. It was the kind that listens back. The old man shifted, joints protesting, and slowly stood. His legs trembled beneath him. He took a few steps toward the grass, then stopped, suddenly unsure why he had moved at all. Memory slipped easily now. Things he had known his whole life vanished without warning. Faces blurred, names dissolved. But the feeling in his chest remained, sharp and undeniable. He had been left behind. He lowered himself back onto the rock and closed his eyes against the sun. Somewhere in the distance, something moved. He heard it before he saw it. A soft, rhythmic sound, steady and deliberate. Not wind, not insects. Footsteps. He opened his eyes. At the edge of the tall grass, a shape emerged, large, tawny, moving with a confidence that did not belong to prey. The old man's heart stuttered. His body tensed, then failed to respond further. There was no strength left to run, no instinct left to scream. A lion stepped into the open, not charging, not crouched, simply walking forward, head high, mane catching the light. Each step closed the distance with terrifying ease. The old man's mind searched for fear and found only exhaustion. He remained seated, hands gripping the edge of the rock, eyes fixed on the animal now standing only a few meters away. The lion stopped. They looked at each other. The savannah seemed to hold its breath. The lion's tail swayed slowly. His ears flicked once. His gaze traveled over the old man's face, his shaking hands, the small bag at his feet. There was no immediate aggression, no rush, just assessment. The old man swallowed hard and whispered something that surprised even him. "I'm tired." The lion took one step closer, and instead of attacking, he lowered his head. The lion's breath reached him first, warm, heavy, smelling of dust and raw earth. The old man didn't flinch because his body couldn't decide what to do. His hands tightened on the rock, knuckles pale, arms trembling under the weight of his own fear. The lion lowered his head until his muzzle hovered inches from the old man's knee, nostrils flaring as he drew in the scent of sweat, age, and something else that didn't belong in the savannah. Medication, antiseptic, the sterile trace of hospitals. For a long second, nothing moved. Then the lion exhaled slowly, a deep, controlled breath, and stepped to the side instead of forward. The motion was subtle, but it changed everything. Predators don't circle that way unless they're deciding how to end something. Yet the lion's posture didn't tighten. His shoulders stayed loose. His tail remained slow. He was not preparing to strike. The old man's eyes watered from the heat and from the shock of being spared a death he had already accepted. He swallowed and forced air into his lungs, shallow at first, then deeper. Somewhere far away, a vehicle engine echoed faintly, but it was too distant to matter. If help was coming, it wasn't coming in time. The lion looked past him, past the road, past the bag, past the rock where the old man sat, his gaze fixed on the grass to the left, where the wind shifted in an unnatural pattern, a ripple that wasn't wind, movement that had intention. The old man didn't see it clearly, but he felt the change in the air. The insects quieted. The birds stopped. Silence hardened. Two lionesses emerged from the grass. Not rushing, not hiding, but walking with the same calm certainty as the male. They spread out immediately, one to the left, one to the right, forming a loose arc that cut the road into a trapped space. The old man's heart kicked painfully. So this was it. The male had only been testing. The pride had arrived to finish what he had started. He closed his eyes and bowed his head, as if surrender could make the moment less violent. But when he listened, he didn't hear the approach of teeth or claws. He heard something else, a low rumble from the male's chest. Not a roar meant for prey, a warning meant for his own kind. The lionesses paused, their bodies stiffening, ears flicking back. One took a step forward and stopped immediately, as if an invisible leash had snapped tight. The male lifted his head and faced them, broad shoulders, squared. He did not bare his teeth. He simply held his ground with authority. The lionesses hesitated. The old man opened his eyes and saw it clearly now. This wasn't a hunt. It was a boundary. The lion was keeping them back. The old man's throat tightened so suddenly it felt like he couldn't breathe. His mind tried to make sense of it and failed. Why would a lion block other lions? Why would he guard a human, especially one so weak, so easy, so alone? The male turned his head slightly and looked down at the old man again. Not with hunger. With something closer to recognition, or perhaps evaluation of a different kind. The old man's lips moved before he could stop them. "I don't have anything," he whispered. "I can't give you anything." The lion blinked slowly. Then he did something that made the lionesses shift with impatience. He stepped closer to the old man and lowered his body to the ground, settling beside the rock as if he belonged there. His massive chest rose and fell, slow and steady. He angled his body so the old man was partially behind him, shielded from the lioness's line of approach. The old man's eyes filled again. It wasn't sentimentality. It was confusion so deep it turned into emotion. He had been abandoned by blood, by the person who should have protected him. Yet here, in a place where compassion was supposed to be a myth, something wild had chosen restraint. The lionesses circled wider, annoyed, searching for a different angle. The male's head followed their movement, calm and unwavering. Each time one came too close, he released that low rumble again. Each time they stopped. Not because they wanted to, because they had to. Minutes passed like that, stretched and unreal. The sun burned higher. Heat shimmered above the road. The old man's strength drained steadily, and his body began to sag forward. His hands slipped from the rock. His head dipped. His breathing grew weaker. He was not dying from teeth. He was dying from being left. The lion noticed before anyone else could. He rose abruptly and moved closer to the old man, positioning himself so his shadow covered the old man's face. The old man felt the temperature drop slightly in that shade, felt it like mercy. He tried to lift his head and couldn't. His eyelids fluttered. His mouth opened without sound. The lion lowered his head and nudged the old man's shoulder with his muzzle, not hard enough to injure, just enough to wake him. The old man gasped and blinked, disoriented. The lion nudged him again, more urgent now, then turned his head toward the road and stared into the distance, as if waiting. as if listening. Then, from far off, the engine sound returned, closer this time, more defined. A vehicle, not a patrol, not a tourist car, something heavier. The lionesses heard it too and stiffened instantly, uncertainty rippling through them. The male remained still, eyes locked on the approaching sound, body positioned between the old man and everything else. The old man forced himself to breathe. He tried to understand why the lion wasn't leaving, why he was staying, why he had chosen this particular human to guard in the middle of nowhere. And then he saw something that made his blood run cold. On the horizon, the approaching vehicle was not alone. Behind it, cutting through the tall grass at speed, were dark shapes moving low and fast. Hyenas, drawn by the scent of weakness, converging on the same point. The lion's posture changed in an instant. His calm was gone. The Savanna was about to explode into violence, and the old man was still too weak to stand. The hyenas came on fast, their bodies low, shoulders rolling with that unsettling mix of hunger and confidence. There were more than the old man could count at first glance. 4, maybe 5, spreading as they ran, already thinking in angles and exits. Their calls cut through the heat, sharp and mocking, the sound of animals that believed the outcome had already been decided. The lion rose, not in panic, not in haste. He rose the way something ancient and certain rises when a line has been crossed. His mane lifted slightly as he squared his body toward the incoming shapes, placing himself fully between the old man and the open road. The lionesses moved instinctively, one to each side of him now, no longer questioning his authority. Whatever confusion had existed moments earlier was gone. This was no longer about a human. It was about territory, order, and dominance. The old man tried to push himself upright and failed. His arms shook violently, his strength evaporating as quickly as it came. He slumped back against the rock, chest heaving, vision narrowing at the edges. He could hear the animals, but the sounds began to blur together. Heat and exhaustion pressed in from all sides. The first hyena slowed, skidding slightly in the dust as it reassessed. Hyenas were not fools. They measured risk carefully. A full-grown male lion was not something they challenged lightly. But numbers had a way of rewriting courage. One hyena darted closer, testing the space, head low, teeth bared in a grin that wasn't humor at all. The lion answered with a roar that seemed to punch the air flat. It wasn't loud for the sake of noise. It was precise, controlled, aimed. The sound rolled across the savanna and landed squarely in the chests of the hyenas. 2 of them faltered immediately. Another stopped short, paws digging into the dirt. But one kept coming, emboldened by desperation or stupidity. The lion charged. He didn't sprint far. He didn't need to. 3 powerful strides were enough. The hyena veered off at the last second, dust exploding beneath its feet as it escaped the arc of the lion's reach. The message was clear. The savanna fell into a tense stillness, broken only by the heavy breathing of animals holding themselves back from chaos. The lion returned to the old man just as quickly, positioning himself again as a living barrier. His sides rose and fell, muscles taut, eyes never leaving the pack. The lionesses flanked him, equally alert. The hyenas paced in a loose semicircle now, no longer charging but unwilling to retreat entirely. They laughed and snapped at the air, waiting for weakness. The old man felt a strange pressure against his shoulder. The lion had lowered himself beside him, pressing close enough that the old man could feel the vibration of his breathing through the ground. The lion's body blocked the sun completely now, casting the old man in deep shade. It was the first real relief his body had felt since being left on the roadside. His mind drifted. Memories came in fragments. His daughter as a child, running ahead of him, turning back to make sure he was following. A hospital room. White walls. A conversation that had ended with silence instead of goodbye. His chest tightened painfully. He wondered dimly if this was how it ended. Not with words, not with forgiveness, but with a stranger's protection. The lion shifted suddenly and nudged the old man again, firmer this time. The old man gasped, dragged back into the present. The lion's head turned toward the road. The engine noise was louder now, close. The lion released a short, sharp roar, not at the hyenas but toward the sound of the vehicle, as if announcing territory, as if warning. The hyenas reacted instantly. They scattered a few steps back, startled by the new variable. Uncertainty rippled through them. Hyenas thrived on imbalance. The arrival of humans changed the equation. One by one they began to retreat, not running, but pulling away reluctantly, eyes fixed on the lion until distance felt safer. The vehicle broke through the grass moments later, a supply truck slowing hard when the driver took in the scene. Dust billowed, doors stayed closed, someone shouted inside. Radios crackled to life. The lion did not move. He remained beside the old man, head high, body steady, watching the humans as carefully as he had watched the hyenas. The lionesses held their positions, tense but controlled. The Savanna was balanced on a knife edge now. One wrong movement, one loud sound, one sudden decision could undo everything. The old man's breathing became ragged. His head fell forward. The adrenaline that had kept him present began to drain away. The world narrowed to sound and shadow. He felt the lion's flank press closer, solid and warm, anchoring him. The driver opened the truck door slowly and raised his hands, voice shaking as he called for help over the radio. More vehicles were coming. Rangers, medics, people with authority and plans. The lion watched it all. And then, just as the first ranger stepped into view, the old man's body sagged completely, his cane slipping from his fingers and falling into the dust. The lion reacted instantly. He stood and positioned himself directly over the old man, legs planted wide, head lowered, teeth flashing, not in rage, but in warning. No one was allowed to touch him. Not yet. And as the rangers froze in their tracks, weapons half raised and then slowly lowered again, a terrifying realization spread through them all. The lion was not guarding the old man out of instinct anymore. He was guarding him by choice. And whatever reason lay behind that choice was something none of them were prepared to face. The rangers held their ground, every muscle locked in restraint. Training told them to secure the human first. Experience told them that one wrong step would turn this into bloodshed. The lion stood over the old man like a living wall, legs braced, mane lifting in the hot wind, eyes fixed on the nearest movement. He did not roar again. He didn't need to. His posture said enough. A medic knelt slowly, palms open, stopping well short of the lion's reach. "We can help him," she said, not to the rangers, but to the animal. Her voice stayed low, even, as if speaking to a storm you hoped would listen. The lion's gaze flicked to her, then back to the hyena tracks fading into the grass. He was listening, weighing. The old man's chest rose unevenly. Each breath took effort. His head lolled forward and then settled against the rock. The lion lowered his own head, close to the man's shoulder, and released a long, steady exhale that seemed to pull the tension from the air. It wasn't surrender. It was calculation. The ranger in charge raised one hand, signaling everyone to stay still. He took a half step forward and stopped, testing the boundary. The lion's tail swayed once, slow and deliberate. The ranger froze. He lowered his foot back into the dust. The medic tried again, inching closer on her knees. The lion watched her hands. When she stopped moving, he shifted his weight and took one step back, just one, creating a narrow pocket of space beside the old man. It was barely enough. It was everything. The medic slid in, movements careful, breath held. She checked the old man's pulse, his airway, the signs of dehydration and shock. She worked quickly, quietly, like time itself was a predator circling them both. When she reached for an IV kit, the lion stiffened. She paused, waited, then angled the needle away from the man's face, letting the lion see exactly what she was doing. The lion eased again. The IV went in. Fluids began to flow. The old man coughed weakly and drew a deeper breath. Color crept back into his face. The medic nodded once to the ranger. Small victories only, nothing sudden. More vehicles arrived and stopped at a distance. Radios crackled and fell silent again as orders were swallowed by reality. No one advanced. No one raised a weapon. The Savanna watched. The lionesses stood guard at the edges, scanning the grass, ears flicking toward distant movement. The hyenas were gone now, scattered by noise and certainty. The road lay open and empty again, dust settling like ash. The medic signaled that they needed to move the old man to shade, to a stretcher. The ranger swallowed and took a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "We're going to lift him," he said softly, to the lion as much as to his team. The lion leaned forward, sniffed the medic's hands once more, then stepped back another pace. He did not leave. He watched. The team moved in together, slow and synchronized, lifting the old man carefully. The lion's muscles tensed, then loosened as the man's weight transferred. When the stretcher rose, the lion followed for 2 steps and stopped, standing where the shade ended and the sun began. The old man stirred as they carried him, eyes fluttering open for a second. He looked past the medic's shoulder and saw the lion standing there, unmoving. His lips parted. No sound came out, but his hand lifted weakly, fingers curling in a gesture that might have been gratitude or goodbye. The lion lowered his head once, then he turned away. He walked back toward the grass, joining the lionesses without haste. The savanna closed behind them, swallowing their shapes until there was nothing left but tracks that would fade by evening. At the medical station, the old man stabilized. Fluids, shade, careful monitoring. When he was strong enough to speak, he asked for water and then fell silent again. Hours later, as the sun dipped and the air cooled, a ranger sat beside him and asked the question everyone carried. Why did he stay? The old man stared at the ceiling for a long moment. His voice, when it came, was thin but steady. Because he knew what it meant to be left, he said, and he chose not to. They never saw that lion again. But for days after, rangers found the marks, broad paw prints near the road, circling once, then turning back into the grass. Proof enough. The story spread in fragments, softened by reports and distance. An abandoned man. A close call. Wildlife managed. What didn't make it into any file was the truth that lingered in the quiet after. That sometimes, when humans fail each other completely, something wild steps in, not to save, not to judge, but simply to stand guard until help arrives. And that choice, once made, leaves a mark deeper than teeth.